Hello everybody, and welcome to my latest playthrough. You should be able to tell from the title of the video, but this is Shadow of the Colossus 2018. And this is actually the first time that I have ever played through Shadow of the Colossus. I will at some point go through sort of my history with the game, because while this is ultimately a blind playthrough of it, because I've never played Shadow of the Colossus before, I have watched the entirety of it before, and I have played a bit of the opening before, but that is something that I'll go into a little bit more later. But I have to say, it's been a really beautiful experience going through this game. It really has. So, yes, it's just gorgeous. It really, really is. I mean, even this opening cutscene is just stunning. And so, it's time to begin Shadow of the Colossus. As I said, this is a blind one. It's the first time that I ever played through the game in full. I'm going to play on normal, and you're going to see everything. All my successes, and all my failures, for better and for worse. And so, Wanda, our protagonist, heads in to the ruins to try and rescue, or try to revive anyway, the life of this girl, Mono, on his beloved horse, Agro.
Was you hick? How well you for all? Could you be cook? You solo iron do. You little cock. I use the Yula called the lawyer. Olik, Olazulam, cause. It's a very cool at Zoko. I'm not screwed. Laomism wop. Was you a dealers also? View houses is view. Equal kids adore you Lola. Is this was I could? How miss quick you are all quicker.
dorming for our Yula. Ostu Hailwa Wukiwaikwa. Ujes has work to the co. Was Nordekyo Wutira.
I will end you soon.
I will be Yuaizum Dormi killed.
Is Kumku. It is all of you Iweriko. It's not all amusement. Alu Tiklik. If the least to is.
Was it's wrong.
Uronora. Oil. I'll bet.
I was guilty call. No certain case, no court. On those alarms, I warrior concluded. Error was no service, a well able.
You do. You bet, Sanada.
Recall, I was no service. Oh, you and me cry of star. Was you and me, Oricum Zula, Mukira Jura. Nosus, Urans, Kandu, Mukodo.
Oram.
You was no zero. Yellow. Oila orange.
Ola. You do new.
No cooler. It will arrow. I would join. I was you arrow. Icon. Dance around. Card officer.
And so at last we are free to explore the Forbidden Lands. And I have to say, it took me a little bit of time to get used to the controls of Shadow of the Colossus. Especially the fact that you have to press the triangle button to get aggro to move. I was just like, do I just press forward on the horse? No, that wasn't how that worked. But, I mean, first things first, this game does just look bloody gorgeous. I know it looked gorgeous when it originally came out on the PS2. I mean, the art style on that was stunning. But the work that Blue Point Games have done, in terms of all of the graphic design work that they have done for this remake, it's just outstanding. Everything apart from perhaps Wanda's face. And that's the one thing that I think pretty much everyone has criticised. I too would also criticise it, because it's got more sort of muscles in it than the original Wanda's face. But it just looks wrong, to put it lightly. It's the only thing in the game that I would really actually heavily criticise in terms of what they've done as in the remake. It's just that face. There's just something really weird about it. But anyway, the original Shadow of the Colossus came out in 2005 in America and Japan, and actually it came out in Europe the very day that I am recording this commentary 12 years ago, so February the 17th, 2006, and that's just insane. The game has had one re-release before. There was a remastered version for PS3, which was also developed by Bluepoint Games, which was released in 2011 as part of the Eco and Shadow of the Colossus collection, which was basically just a HD remastering of the original game, which reintegrated content that had previously been missing from the North American version, added trophies, and also 3D support. The original game was developed by SIE Japan Studio and Team Eco, published by Sony, directed by Fumito Ueda, produced by Kenji Kaido, designed by Fumito Ueda, written by Fumito Ueda, Junichi Hosono, Masashi Kudo, Takashi Izutani, and the composing for the game was done by Kao Watani. This remake was developed by Bluepoint Games because pretty much, I think, so many of the people who work at Bluepoint were just such big fans of the original Shadow of the Colossus. It's part of the reason why they did the initial remastering, I think. But they have developed a really, really good reputation for porting games and remastering them and remaking them. Because, I mean, they did the God of War collection, they did the PS4 version of Flower, they did the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, they did Eco and Shadow of the Colossus collection, they ported Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection to PS4, Gravity Rush to the PS4, and now they did this, which is their first full, complete remake, so it's built from the ground up. Like, I think the only thing that pretty much remains from the original PS2 is the code base. But all of the assets have been redone, and it's just amazing. Although, I have to say, I didn't have the best starts to Shadow of the Colossus, because I was thinking, oh, I climb up here, surely. On my TV, the screen was a little bit darker than perhaps it should have been, so there was a lot that I couldn't actually see in these sort of darker areas, and I thought, oh, maybe if I run this way and then I run over here, and actually no! I just managed to encounter a glitch within about less than 5 minutes of actually playing, which I found to be quite impressive. Yeah, this is what I meant by you're going to see all my successes and all my failures as well, because seeing as this was my first proper time playing the game, it felt only right to show off kind of the way that I ended up playing and the challenges that I faced. Because even though ultimately that slightly breaks the level of immersion, I suppose, in terms of the story and the world, because you're introduced to that very video gamey element of game over screens. But it's also that whole thing of, I think half the joy of Shadow of the Colossus is your first experience of it, in a way, because it's the sort of wow factor of coming up against the Colossi and trying to figure out how to defeat them, and the twists and turns that the narrative, although simplistic, does take. And I think that, yeah, it's a really interesting game to finally experience. I've wanted to play it for many years now, because it's one of those things where the original game was like so highly loved and lauded that it was just like, this is one of the games that really at some point in my life I should play. and because I didn't have a PS3, I never really got that chance, which wasn't great, but that's just the way things go. You don't have a console, you don't get to play certain games. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, and for God's sake, past me, just turn around, there's a blooming set of vines, but I was thinking, oh, I can climb up here. I can't. Failures once again. And also, once again, it was dark on my screen, so I couldn't actually see some of this stuff. But yeah, so I thought I always should play this, didn't really get the chance. And then when I was at university, there was a society that was set up, which was basically merging... It was all about gaming and literature, which is one of the things that I just love. That's a thing that I think is just amazing, is pulling them together. And I can't remember whether it was the... So I think the first inkling that I had that it existed was so at uni there was this collection of student writing that got released every year, and so there was a sort of masterclass, which, because it was all to do with play, so they had someone, like a master's student, talking about gaming and writing and all of that, and I just found that to be a really fascinating thing to go to, and because I wanted to try and get published in it. Ultimately, didn't happen, but that was still a really fascinating thing to go to, because then I found out about this, like, society type thing that was happening, and I think I went to the first one, at least I think it was the first one, and it was dealing with Shadow of the Colossus and giants and stories. And it was just really fascinating because we actually ended up playing a bit of the opening of the game, and I believe that we made it up to the third Colossus, and it was quite fascinating to experience. And then after that, I never really got round to it again because it never showed up. And then they announced that they were remaking it in full HD, and it was going to be on PS4, and it was just like, oh, I'm actually going to finally be able to play Shadow of the Colossus. And so it came out, and I got it, and I have played it, finally. And while I suppose I have come at it from a slightly strange perspective, I suppose, because I've already watched it like the entirety of it before, so I know all the twists and the turns of the story. I know all of the colossi that are coming, and in a way that does sort of diminish some of the awe that I would perhaps feel. There's also just the fact of it's always very interesting when you come up to a game that is as old as this one, that's just been given a lick of paint. I mean, it's 12 years old. This is not... Well, it's 12, 13 years old, so this is not a new game by any stretch of the imagination, and as a result, there are numerous elements of the gameplay and the way the camera works that do perhaps show their age. I mean, the whole climbing mechanic in particular is one that it takes a while to get used to. You can see the fact that I have had so much trouble actually figuring out how the hell to climb for the first age of this part. Like, and also, you know, just falling off of things. It's because it's the whole thing of grabbing with R2, because so many games, these days anyway, basically auto-grab for you, and when they don't, it's not so much about kind of having the grab, because the whole point of kind of you press the R2 button and you grab is it makes you feel like you're actually grabbing onto the things. The only problem is that sometimes it's a little bit finicky. And it's an interesting one. while I would say that Shadow of the Colossus is still an absolute joy to play, especially in this iteration, there is just something a little bit old about the way that its gameplay works. But here is our first of the Colossus. Well, first Colossus. This, as the world has called him, is Valis. And really he's the first one that we really have to deal with. Now musically we've had a few songs. The song that plays as you approach his location is Sign of the Colossus. If Valis actually spots us, the song that plays is Grotesque Figures, and once Valis is crippled and kneeling, the song Opened Way plays until he is defeated. And I mean, really, the soundtrack for Shadow of the Colossus is stunning. It always was, and it still is. It's just really quite spectacular. And really, Valis isn't really all that difficult. The challenge is that because you are just, you know, starting to play the game, it's all about trying to get your positioning, and really dealing with climbing is the thing that you're going to be mostly struggling with. Because as you can see, I did manage to get onto the hair, because that's really the only bit you're going to be able to climb on is the hair, and anything that's like a ledge. But because of how I ended up landing on him, it didn't quite work out as well as I would have liked. And I mean, on the whole, Valis isn't that complicated, but I mean, he can really do you in if you're not careful, because as you can see, you've not really got a whole lot of health, and if he kind of spots you and goes for you with that club, or, you know, steps on you, it's not going to be pretty. It's really not going to be pretty. Now, in development, Valis was known as Minotaur A, so basically none of the Colossi actually have proper names at all. But in development they were pretty much known by their shape, but then for some reason the fans decided to give them like actual names that I'm not really sure what they are entirely based on, but they are pretty good names, I feel. And the nice thing with Valis is that pretty much once you've gotten onto this bit at his back, which I think some people have said is somewhat unrealistic, but then all of the Colossi are kind of made out of the earth, and so really they're sort of golem-esque creatures. So you can understand there being these odd bits and bobs all over their body. But the whole gist of defeating a Colossus is find the glowing glyphs somewhere on their body. You can do this using like shining your sword onto them, or pretty much just having your sword out and moving about the Colossi, and then stabbing the poor creatures in them. Because while they're, you know, quite deadly, Valis wasn't actually doing anything to us until we came and brutally attacked him. But there we go. Our first Colossus is dead.